Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we are going to be talking about when people stay married for adult children. And this is more common than you might think, especially if you've not really thought about this because your kids are young. But anyway, before we get to that, please do subscribe. The most recent episode was on why your wife may fantasize about other men and why to, well, you'll have to see. Don't want to give everything away. The episodes are only 15 minutes, so, I don't need to give too much of a TLDR for that. Okay, or TLDL, too long, don't listen. All right, anyway, so who stays together for adult children? Well, two types of people that are extremely child-centered and people that are extremely anxious. So these overlap. Also people who are very depressed. So, I guess we got three types of people to discuss. So there are many people in unhappy marriages and their children are literally adults. So they don't even live with the parents anymore. But for some reason, the parents do not think that their own happiness is really worth much. And therefore, they stay together for the kids, telling themselves that the adult children will be upset. And sometimes they also tell themselves that they won't get as much time with the adult children. So, yes, obviously, if the children do have to split Thanksgiving or Christmas, then you will not get as much time with the children, although they tend to kind of make it up. So, like, they'll see, you for one day and the other one for another day, but usually they would have just seen you both for one day and then gone and seen their friends for another day. Kids try, if they have good relationships with both parents, they do try to even it out. And if they have to kind of wiggle their schedule around a little bit, they will still see both parents for holidays. But most people are not just doing it for the holidays. I could get more into that. And also, of course, if you really worry about that, then one might think kind of like, do you have anything else going on? Frequently not. Frequently you've been really pinning all your hopes and dreams on being extremely involved with the kids when they're adults. And that really does not work well because I've seen this happen with clients. The kids move for a job or they, just travel for their holidays or they hang out with the in-laws more than with you. And then if that's going to destroy your world, then you're going to end up having a pretty bad relationship with your adult kids. So if your entire happiness is predicated on their involvement with you as adults, that tends to go extremely poorly in today's culture. It used to be a default that you could guilt trip your kids into doing anything, and there was a lot more obligation in parent-child relationships and much more filial duty. That has evaporated in today's culture. Ironically, the very same parents that always wanted the kid to be an individual and do whatever they want, weren't really thinking about the downside of that when the kids say, well, I do whatever I want. Remember, that's how we roll. And so then the kids do whatever they want. The parents somehow thought that would mean always hanging out with the parent, but guess what? It doesn't. So anyway, I could do a million podcasts on that alone, but the point here is people that are telling themselves that their adult children are going to be massively impacted, at least the ones who are saying, I won't get time with them or being honest with themselves, Then there's the ones who are super anxious and they're telling themselves that the adult children are going to be devastated and destroyed by the parents' divorce. Well, that should not really be the case. Sure, they'll be very upset, but people lose parents, parents die too, and people recover, this is not going to destroy their life. If it did, there would be a lot of problems there, and your child would probably already have tremendous mental and emotional issues, If your child is even reasonably, if your child is out of the house, truly, if your child is independent and they're an adult, and or they're only back in the house because they're still in college or they're getting their financial footing or something, but if they are able to do things like leave the house, get a job, engage with friends, then they are psychologically healthy enough to weather parents divorcing. That is something that happens. So why would you why would parents think that this would be so devastating to the child? Really, it's projection. Like, they're very anxious and depressed. They themselves are very terrified of a divorce. They may have gone through a parent's divorce when they were a younger child than their children are now. And they are really also being kind of self-centered, not in like the worst way, I guess, but no self-centered is super good. They are overestimating their importance in the life of the adult child, quite honestly, and they are overstating. I see this in a lot of grandparents that come in and they're like estranged or something. And what they say is that the grandchild is going to suffer from not having the grandparents' involvement in their life. And really, they're not, they're not going to suffer that much. As I've said before, grandparents don't usually mess up grandkids that much. They're older, they're mellower, and the kid just views them as wacky instead of like anybody who has any control over anything they do. So usually there's not much of a grandchild related reason to estrange from parents, unless of course they're abusive or substance abusing or dangerous in some way. But there's also like not as big of a benefit as people think of having the grandparental involvement. It's a good thing, but it's certainly not a necessary thing. A necessary thing is to have a parent. Necessary thing is not to have a grandparent, because of course, unfortunately, many people don't, by virtue of the fact that the grandparent is not alive. So it's the same thing. When you're saying that like your divorce is going to like destroy the lives of your adult children, is kind of making yourself like too important in a sense, in a way that isn't really developmentally appropriate. I really don't know many adults who would say, yep, I'm 25, but I would like my parents to stay unhappily married forever because I really just want one place to go to for Christmas. And, like their lives don't fucking matter. What matters is like those 2 days a year that I come home for Christmas. If you've raised even remotely a child with any sense of morality, they don't want you to be miserable. The worst thing is when kids think that parents stay together for them. I mean, you just got to talk to any kids whose parents did this and who in any way explicitly or implicitly stated that they did this, and the kid is just horrified, I mean, they don't want that. Nobody wants that. And they can pick up on it too. So, I mean, even if you've not explicitly stated it, it may be implicitly stated by the fact that you're like kind of unhappy constantly and everything's about the kid. So the kid can conclude that the marriage is for the kid, pretty much. Like, that's the whole point. And they feel terrible. Any kid who grows up with unhappily married parents who are staying together for them wish that they didn't. So anyway, it would be this times 1,000 for adult children, obviously, because they are out of the house. I mean, they just want you to be happy, I mean, They don't want to think about you being sorrowful and miserable. And it's a hell of a lot of burden because, like, if they do know that you're miserable and people are not as good actors as they think in this regard, then they have to like kind of worry about you and think about how sad you are and think about like how they could never ever travel for Thanksgiving ever, even though it's like the only long weekend they get from work, and they can't go away because their parents would fucking lose their minds because their parents live for the holidays because they're so miserable the rest of the damn time. So this is not like a good thing to do to your kids. Now, also, it does show your kids that you should stay miserable forever, and that is certainly not the sort of thing that most people want to teach their children. You may have already not shown them much of a good marriage, except in as much as you were a child-centered team, but you do have the opportunity to do that later on if you remarry and you're with somebody happy. So many people say to me things in therapy like, yeah, my mom and dad were miserable, but, they finally divorced, thank God. And, my dad's married to a really lovely woman, and I'm happy for him. Was never happy before, or my mom finally found somebody that makes her happy. And I'm so happy. He's a good guy. I don't have much of a relationship with him because I met him when I was like 20 something, but he's a good guy. Like, I think of him more like a friend than a stepdad because I met him when I was older, but he's a good guy. He takes my mom out, they travel, they do stuff. I'm really happy. She was always so sad, and now she's all right. People say shit like this all the time in therapy. I've never heard anybody say, what, it totally destroyed my life when my parents divorced when I was 25, and I never really got over it, and what a pair of selfish motherfuckers. No, I mean, people say, wow, when my parents divorced, I thought, why the hell took you so long? You were always miserable. And now for the people that have really kept their cards close to their chest and their kids don't know that they're miserable, are those kids going to feel more blindsided? Sure. But I mean, why don't you deserve to be happy? Like, if you have a discussion with an adult child, it would be, we grew apart and we don't make each other happy anymore. And we, in the second half of our lives or less, we would like to still live our best lives, you know, as we've always encouraged you to do. And that can be a very good template for them and a good role modeling of like actually giving a shit about happiness, you know, something that you may have foregone in their earlier years when you were martyring yourself to staying together for their sake. So depressed or anxious people, as I said, are the ones who tend to overinflate what a divorce would do to the kids, as well as inflate how devastated they would feel on the alternate holidays or whatever when they didn't see the children. You know, this is the same with everything. When you're depressed and anxious, you see negativity everywhere and you don't see the positivity. So these are the people who will say, nah, I would never find anybody anyway. And the kids would hate me and they would just side with their other parent. And so, you know, the rest of my old age would just be horrible. It'd be a lonely wasteland. Like what? Like, what are you saying? Like, how likely is that? Like, people get through like such major horrible things that happen to them and are resilient, and you would be the lone person to be completely alone, isolated, friendless, relationshipless. I mean, like, come on, you know, it doesn't make any sense. You know, if you even had a cursory, you know, drive towards self-preservation, this would not be what your life would look like. And also there's all the other days in the year to visit your children that aren't the holidays, you know, and if they love you and if they're close to you, they're not trying to cut you out of their lives just because they don't see you as a unit with their other parent. And quite honestly, many people that are in unhappy marriages have done a lot of handoffs of the kids over the years anyway, and they've not really parented together in a long time. So it's like, you know, dad will take you to do these things and mom will cook you meals and do these things. And the parenting is kind of individual anyway. So it might just be truly a continuation of what's been going on anyhow for the majority of people who are what I call divorced in spirit prior to a divorce, which is most people, because they've already, by the age that the kids are adults, started to live fairly separate lives and see the children fairly separately. So anyway, hopefully this gave you something to think about, because the reality is that you're a person and you deserve to be happy. And if you don't think you deserve to be happy, I've recorded a lot and written a lot about why. And it's always because of the same thing. You didn't get treated super well as a kid and you saw martyred parents that didn't think they deserved to be happy. So for you, happiness isn't like a thing that you think is possible, but yet it is. Like, this is the only life you get, you know? You don't deserve to be miserable, and you want to break the cycle of teaching kids that life is misery and obligation. And that may be what you think, that may be how you were trained, but how did that work out for you? Pretty bad. So you might want to train your kids in the exact opposite of that, which is you deserve to be happy. You deserve to live your best life. You know, you deserve to be with somebody who you love. You deserve, yes, certainly, like, there are obligations in the world. And, you know, we did stay together and gave you guys a great life to our best effort, you know, but now you're out, you're launched. We're very proud of you. You're successful, you're independent. And now, you know, now maybe we have a chance to pursue something different than a family unit in which the couple was not working. The family may have worked, you know, but the couple didn't. And now we are trying to pursue something in line with our own values and interests, because we're not dead yet. You know, and that is a really good lesson for your kids to learn. So yeah, I really don't like, you know, it's sad to see people that are staying together for kids just like kind of betting that these kids are going to like visit them on holidays and they're going to end up with like X more hours with adult children per year, because they are sacrificing any possible happiness they could have on the altar of those minutes. You know, it's just really sad and disillusioning. So this would be a good one to discuss with your therapist if you have one, which you should. If you are unhappily married and you have thought that you're just going to stay together endlessly because, you know, parenting apparently doesn't end at any time now. I mean, not that parenting ends, but, you know, people nowadays parent their 27-year-olds like people used to parent their 7-year-olds. So, you know, it's a cultural shift, you know, paradigm shift, but it doesn't mean that your life has to like be a garbage fire, you know. And on that pithy note, I will end, and I hope that you got something out of this, guys, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.